Let's face it, we are no longer in touch with our bodies. We don't know what's happening inside our bodies and what our bodies are communicating with us. And how would we? We live in this extremely fast-paced, digitally overload age of information. Sometimes I honestly feel that we have to expend a lot of energy nowadays in finding ways to keep ourselves balanced and protected when there is so much information coming at us. But it's not impossible, which is why today I want to share not only my personal experience, but also 3 practical ways in which we can start building our connection back to our bodies, or in what I like to call embodiment. I also have a free guide for one of those tips that you can actually start implementing today. Our bodies are constantly talking to us. If this concept feels alien, think about how did you know you have to pee or poop, or what was your body telling you when you were sweating? This is the body communicating with us. But one thing that I have learned from my personal experience, as well as the education in Ayurveda and Somatic, is that the body talks in whispers. It gives us subtle signs all the time. And unfortunately, because the world around us is so loud, that the whispers have become quieter and quieter. I'm going to ask you a question right now, and I want you to think about it for a few seconds. You can pause the video if that's the time you need to think about it. How do you know that you're angry? Where do you feel it in your body? What changes in the body? Is there a change in your body temperature? Maybe the way your mouth feels, a change in heartbeat, a change in breathing, maybe a constriction, tightness, tingling. There are just so many things that can happen that inform us that our body is experiencing a different emotion. These are all signs from the body. We just have to tune in to the body. Actually, I'm not going to say just tune in because it is not easy. It's a process. It's been a process for me. But I want to make it easier for you and offer you some tools that I wish I had when I started. We are very smart beings. Humans are so smart, especially in this day and age, and we can find really creative ways of dissociating with our bodies. Here are some ways that I know where people, my clients included, me included, dissociate with our bodies. Daydreaming about a future that does not exist. Because the present moment is harder to bear, so it's easier to escape into the future and the fantasy. Immersing ourselves in work so that we can just hide from the big emotions because wait a minute, who has the time? We have a deliverable coming up. There is a deadline. There is that important meeting. And in general, finding something to do all the time. I don't know if you've heard where people say, I can't just sit still, or I can't sit without having anything to do. Sometimes finding errands, to-do lists, and things to do and seeking that constant stimulation is a way to avoid slowing down. Because when we slow down, the whispers of the body become audible, and we don't want that. It's painful. For me, this has been and continues to be quite a journey. I was a big doer. I couldn't sit still, as we say, and I needed constant stimulation. The reason I share my personal story is to make it more relatable, because I went through this and I'm still going through this in a different form or a different version. And I want you to know that there is a way through this. And these tools that I'm going to share hopefully will help you get started. I sought stimulation from late night parties after I had graduated and started working. I was living in New York and it was like, whoa, where's the next party at over the weekend? I don't think for maybe a period of 2 or 3 years, there was ever a weekend where I did not have a social event to go to. And those social events were loud. Easy way for me not to hear the whispers of my body is to make the environment around me as loud as possible. I sought stimulation from romantic relationships that offered enough drama so that I had the license to disengage from my body. There's one crisis after the other, big relationship crisis that I had to handle. So I really didn't have time to sit still and understand what was happening here, what was really happening inside the body. And I share all these again to normalize them. It is okay if you find yourself falling in one or all of these spectrums, or if you identify there are different ways in which you dissociate from your body. But of course, avoidance never works. We all know that. So my avoidance of what my body was telling me caught up with me. I experienced anxiety, depression, a lack of connection with friends, lack of motivation, extreme bursts of anger, a lot of digestive issues that would prop up, and just the sense that something was not right in my life. It was a really difficult time, but I'm very grateful that I had some tools to help me start connecting and listening to my body, which was a path to find healing. Number 1, food. Now, this might seem like counterintuitive because we've been talking about emotions and body from that perspective, but bear with me as I walk you through this. I do want to say that if topics about food and nutrition are triggering for you, then this might not be the right place for you to start, and you can skip ahead to the other tools that I share. If you think about it, the most important thing that our body needs is nourishment, right? Without nourishment, the body is not going to survive. It's going to starve and eventually wither away and die. So, the most basic form of nourishment for our body is food. So, building awareness around food and how it impacts our body is a form of listening to our body. And I'm not talking about awareness in terms of calorie intake, weight gain, weight loss, skin quality. I'm not talking about all of that. I'm talking about something deeper. It is how does the quality of the food that we consume, the way we consume it, how does it impact our emotions, our strength, our vitality, our sleep, our presence of mind, our presence of being, and just an overall sense of how we feel. A simple way, a practical tip to get started on this is to start with something that I call a food and elimination or digestion journal. And I will put a link to a sample in the show notes somewhere so you can download that and you can get started. Basically, what you do is you record the food that you're eating, again, not from the point of view of calorie or portion sizes. But building awareness in a different way. So you just record the food without any feelings attached to what you're recording, and then you also record any digestive symptoms that you're feeling. They could be bloating, gassiness, nausea, a feeling of being full, having loser poop, feeling constipated, feeling dehydrated, feeling even like a little more on the edge, anxious or nervous. And I don't want you to disregard any symptom because you're used to it. That's our fallacy. Sometimes we're so used to our body feeling like, oh, I am always a little constipated or I'm always a little bloated. It's not a big deal. So step out of that mindset and still go ahead and record. Once you see what you ate and the way it impacted your body, this is step 1 to starting to generate awareness, and you're doing it all on your own. For example, let me share a success story. Like I mentioned, I experienced anxiety, and once I started building food awareness, I noticed that food was also a trigger to anxiety, specifically MSG. And that helped me eliminate or at least reduce cuisines as packaged food, canned goods that are more likely to have MSG. And that has had a tremendous impact on my overall sense of well-being. Second, somatic work. This has been life-changing for me. It's a very freeing and empowering set of practices that help us actually develop our own capacity to sit with difficult emotions, trauma, and challenges. And we do this in small doses called titration. So it's not about moving someone to like a big release of emotions, but helping them build their capacity to feel the difficult emotion in a way that they feel they can handle it, they still feel safe in their body, and then release the emotion. I liked it so much that I trained in it. So a practical tip to get started, and this will seem very simple, but this is absolutely essential, is to have 5 minutes of non-negotiable time every single day to sit with your body and just listen to it. You don't attach any meaning to any sensation. You just kind of scan the body and note the sensations in the body. Again, temperature, tingling, heaviness, lightness, pain. You just kind of give yourself a screenshot of what's happening in the body. My success story, I can now sit with traumatic memories from my previous marriage and divorce without breaking into tears or feeling like my heart is being ripped apart. And that is a huge victory because now I can experience those emotions and those memories without being too attached to them. So those memories now don't take me to that moment. I'm able to kind of view those memories from as a third person. It doesn't feel like it's weighing me down. And that's a big success. Relationships. I think this is the hardest, but if you're up for it, this is a great playground. I wouldn't recommend starting here, but this is like a great thing to come to once you've done the first 2 practices. People come in so many different emotional and psychological packages that sometimes people like these can really push our buttons and trigger us in ways that we don't enjoy. It could be when you feel annoyed at a coworker because they interrupt you in a meeting, or like this feeling of like being very irritated at your partner for something that they are doing, or something bigger, a sense of resentment or deep rage at someone because you feel they wronged you. So practical tip, and this is very important, don't skip this, start with mildly challenging situations. Don't just jump to extremely triggering situations. When you are in a mildly challenging situation and you know that this is a little challenging for you, start observing. Like, keep like about 20 to 30% of your attention on your body. You're doing exactly what you do in the body scan, but now you're not doing it with your eyes closed in isolation. You're actually doing it actively in front of someone, like in an actual conversation or an actual circumstance, which is why building the body scan practice can be useful before you jump into this. So just observe what your body is telling you as you are in that situation, which you find a little challenging. And so you're developing the ability to listen to your body, and the more and more you're able to just keep your attention on these sensations without jumping into a huge reaction, you start developing your capacity to deal with these emotions. Which is why I said start small. Start with something mildly triggering. Then your chances of setting yourself up for success are higher. So I'll tell you a success story. I actually experience rage on my skin. I know that sounds weird, but I can feel first and foremost my skin begin to get hotter, which is usually a warning for me that, hey, if I don't change something about this current situation, I might move into a state of anger really soon. And I don't want that for myself. So with this information, more often than not now, I'm able to change the conversation, step out of the conversation, or make some changes so that I have a chance of releasing the anger, but in a more constructive way. So I shared 3 practices. The first was food and elimination or digestion journal. The second was somatic practice of just doing a body scan, not attaching meaning, just listing the sensations. And the third is actually actively using this body scanner awareness that you develop in situations that you find mildly triggering. If you like this content, subscribe to the podcast channel. It helps the podcast to reach more people. And finally, share it with folks who you think can benefit from this conversation.